Hello, welcome inside another edition of the Scores Table. My name is Brian Henschey, joined by Danny Riego. We are previewing some regionals tonight, Daniel, as the folks are watching this. Now, this episode, you probably coming by way of the 4A, 3A episode. Well, this one is dedicated to A and 2A. So let's say you're a fan of a big school. Let's just pick one. Let's say you're a Valparaiso fan, and you're wondering, hey, why aren't these knuckleheads talking about my team? Or you're a Floyd Central fan or a Gibson Southern fan. Where's Gabby Spink? Where's Kyle Brasher? Where's Soke? Everybody loves Soap. That's the other episode. And if you look on the page and if you subscribe to us on YouTube, as you should, you'll see that on another page. This one is for the small schools. We're giving them some love with this one. Danny, let's start in Class 2A, and we're going to bring on our friend Rob Hunt, who we haven't talked to in hours, actually, to talk about Rensselaer Central versus Alexandria. That's where we want to start. We'll talk about a couple others. But, Robert.
Yeah, have you grown since we talked? I mean, it feels like – you look taller.
Short humor. Thank you. Yeah, no, that's great.
I'm here for you.
Thank you. Rensselaer Central versus Alexandria. Rob, you and I were talking about this matchup earlier. Danny and I, right before you came on air. Really interesting matchup. And I will start the discussion with this fellas, a stat that I sent to Robert. Alexandria senior Jacqueline Hosier averages 26 points a game. Per the stats available on Max Preps, all the box scores, I went through them all. Only 3 individuals have scored 20-plus points on Rensselaer this year. North White's Autumn Reef, North Knox's Lexi Primus, and McCutcheon's Lily Graves. And Graves came back the second time. She was held to 11 points on 4 of 15 shooting in the rematch. Obviously, for Alexandria, a lot runs through Jacqueline Hosier. She's a friend of the show, had her dad on. A lot of their success is predicated on her. And now you're going up against a battle-tested Rensselaer team whose specialty seems to be, just statistically speaking, shutting down that one score.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. I mean, and this is one of those teams. I think we talked about LaPel the same way. Who's going to be that second kid that's going to score? Because there's going to be a time where Hosier doesn't have her A game, or somebody figures out a way to defend her, right? So they've got some options. They've got kids who can shoot, but yeah, it all goes through Hosier. She's got the ball in her hands a lot. She's either handling the ball in transition, in the offense. Occasionally she will give it up and run through some screens, but the ball's in her hands a lot. I mean, and she's either going to try to get to the basket, or she's going to dribble and find one of the other, or she's going to pull up from the volleyball line and shoot it from there, which she can do.
Rob, I have a question. I'll jump in early on this one, but when screening Alexandria, it seems like most of their production comes off their ability to turn the other team over, particularly in their half-court pressures. So naturally, the key to the basketball game has to be Rensselaer Central ability to handle against the pressure. Qualify that. Yeah,
the Alexandria defensive pressure, and this is something that doesn't necessarily show up in all the stats, right? It's intense. I mean, it is from start to finish. The only time they let up is if it's a running clock or if it's a big margin, right? They are end to end. They're in your face. They're not afraid to commit fouls. He'll play 9 or 10 kids. They obviously don't want Jacqueline to get any foul trouble, but they're not afraid to play you tough. And it doesn't always shut you out in the first quarter, but eventually it's going to wear you out. If you're not conditioned, those legs are going to start to go. And yeah, if they can. I've seen them get quick steals, boom, 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 immediately 6 points. They get layups in transition. They're very handsy. You get a lot of deflections, and they read the passing lanes very well. Jacqueline is, to me, other than maybe Warfel's pretty close, but one of the best on the ball defenders or off the ball defenders that I've ever seen. I mean, she's really good at reading when the pass is going to go across, and she's very adept at jumping into those passing lanes and getting 2 points going the other way. Will she be able to do that a lot against Rensselaer? They got 3 kids averaging double figures and a fourth averaging 9.5. So that's a team that's played, and they've also played a much tougher schedule than Alexandria has. But that defensive pressure is relentless. I think that's the best word. It is relentless.
Interestingly, too, to both of your points, Rob mentioned the depth and just their ability to wear teams down. Rensselaer only averages about 13 turnovers per game, which is about 6 fewer than I think Alexandria forces per game, for what it's worth in terms of steals. But they also don't run super deep. As I look at the box score, they have 6 kids that have appeared in 20-plus games, and one of them, Taylor Von Meter, she came back and is playing up full strength and is one of those kids who's averaging about 13 a game. So they have a more balanced scoring attack than Alexandria. But to Rob's point, I'm curious, how is the depth or lack thereof going to affect them as they keep, get deeper and deeper into games? And I'm sure that they've seen this before. Teams like to press them, and it's probably a weakness that they've looked to exploit. McCutcheon comes to mind. Haven't seen them twice now. But that's a fascinating – that could be kind of the great equalizer to some of the other factors like the strength of schedule that you mentioned, Rob.
Yeah, and that's they've got – we talk about who else. Lily Harp's a kid who averaged pretty close to 10. She can do a lot of things. She can shoot the three. She can also get inside. She plays much bigger than she is. She's probably 5'4", 5'5", but she plays bigger than that. They got 3-point shooters. Trinity Ford and Kylan McFall are a couple. They've also got a freshman named Conley Davidson. She can play inside and she can shoot the three. She's really started to come on in the second half of the season. Really kind of started when they won that Richmond tournament around Christmas, New Year's, around that time, and she's really developing into a really nice player. So yes, Hosier is going to be the focus. There's no question about that. They do have others who can chip in and score. It's a matter of are they going to get those opportunities?
Danny, what do you make of this? I mean, you've screened Alexandria. We're kind of familiar just from reading up on Rensselaer. What do you make of the matchup itself, bud?
Well, I mean, I don't want to be redundant, but at the risk of redundancy, I have to say that they have to take care of the basketball. The thing about Hosier's point production is a lot of it. Rob had kind of mentioned it. She's really good on the ball. So a lot of their fronts, she is at the front of the zone, creating havoc, getting deflections, things like that. I think Rensselaer's got to throw over the zone. A lot of these zones, I mentioned it when we talked about another game, and this is going to be all chopped up. There won't be any continuity to this comment, but you got to get behind these zones. And so, when you have a balanced team like Rensselaer, that's a difficult matchup for Alexandria, because if you throw it over to capable scorers, that could be something that could maybe chase Alexandria out of some of their odd front half court trapping kind of D's. And I think that, when you're not trying to be the best version of yourself, you're just trying to be the best version a version that can beat the other team. Now you're not doing what you do best. So I do think that if Rensselaer can throw over the zone early without letting Hosier kind of get into some of those initial primary traps, I think they can be effective.
Any other closing thoughts on that, Rob, before we drop down and talk about APA, another of your teams in the coverage area?
Yeah, I think I think that's an excellent point about getting over that zone. Alexandria doesn't have a ton of size. They got the Kellums girl who's got some length, and like I said, Davidson, but they don't have a dominating type post presence. So, but they can be sneaky. Kellums is sneaky good. I mean, by the way, she's going to play golf and basketball at the college level. So kudos to her for doing that. But she can be sneaky good. You can kind of not notice her, and then you look at the stat sheet and she's got 9 points and 5 or 6 rebounds. She's kind of one of those kids. So somebody like her is going to be big to kind of augment what Hosier is going to do.
Rob, just one more. We were having a conversation off air. So when we have these Class A and 2A, some people will listen to this just trying to, be educated so they can watch the game with just a little bit more knowledge. Who's the favorite here? Like, I mean, you just look at the records. I mean, they're both really good basketball teams. If I ask 10 people within that geography, who would it be 5-5 or is there one team that's really kind of the alpha here?
Yeah, I mean, not having not seen them play, I kind of have to look at a lot of stuff on paper, right? And you look at the strength of schedule is a little tougher for Rensselaer. They've got balanced scoring, but you mentioned the 19 steals that they average. I'm sure they average in at least 8 or 9 more turnovers forced per game. They force a lot of throwaways and travels and those kinds of things. So, I think that defense, how Rensselaer handles that is going to be a key. You touched on it, but I think that's going to be, if they can handle that pressure without, you said they average 13. As long as they don't get crazy and average 8 and turn it over 18 or 19 times, if they can stay right around 13, I think they'll be in good shape.
Okay.
Let's move down to Class A, Rob. We have Greenwood Christian versus Anderson Prep. Anderson Prep, first sectional championship in program history, taking on a Greenwood Christian team whose record at 7-17 may not inspire much, but they're on a bit of a run now. They won their regular season finale over Shelbyville Southwestern by 7, 3-point win over Eminence, and then a 2-point win over Lutheran. They kind of had the feeling of a team, and like I've seen this at least with their soccer teams. Feels like they maybe have a little bit of postseason magic. Like, I'm not predicting them to go on a super deep run, but applied to Saturday, I mean, that's, if I'm APA, it's like, I don't know.
Yeah, and they're in the same conference, but they did not play this year. So somebody from the pack is going to semi-state, right? And not only is this APA's first girls basketball sectional championship, this is their first team sectional championship in any sport. So kudos to them. And they came up a point short last year. They lost. They got a shot off at the buzzer and it rimmed out, costing them a championship. So this is new to them, new to the whole school. Hopefully they figure out how to order regional tickets because they've never been here before. But they're a neat team. I'm not sure how many 1A schools have a kid like an Olivia Peoples who's 6'2", really a physical 6'2". She's not a skinny 6'2". That's going to get pushed around. She can dominate the paint. She can also get in foul trouble, which APA cannot have. And Kayla Orr is another girl forward, and the two of them scored 46 of their 48 points in that sectional championship game Saturday. So everything's going to go through those two. Peoples is the school's all-time leading scorer. I don't know much about Greenwood yet. I'm going to start doing some deep dives on that stuff here the next couple of days, but this is an opportunity. I mean, for somebody who maybe when you look at the computer rankings, not somebody you thought would be here with this chance to go to a semi-state, and it's going to be a great. And that's another one that looks even when you look at the computers. I think Greenwood might be a 6 or 7 point favorite.
It's interesting too. I mean, Greenwood's a young team, a lot of freshmen. The one senior that they have on the roster, Faith Kresge, I apologize, I probably butchered that name, but she's a standout volleyball player for them. Again, with some postseason experience, which counts for a lot, but she's leading a lot of young kids on that team. So that's going to be an interesting dynamic there. Two teams that aren't familiar with the postseason stage, both playing head to head.
Yeah, and and this is an APA team that has a pretty solid senior class. This is a group that came in on the heels of a winless season, and over the last 4 years, they got some respectability. They won some games maybe they weren't expecting. They won, Madison County game at one point, which they had never done. And then, last year, and it was Peoples that took the shot. So she gets a chance to redeem herself. And I think she scored 27 in that championship game. So that's why I think this is a neat story. This is a neat team. I'm not sure what the future looks like. They're pretty senior heavy, but kudos to them for sticking with it for 4 years and, showing up each day and, going from, like I said, winless to now they're a sectional champion.
That's pretty awesome. Well, Rob, thanks so much for hopping on with us, brother. We appreciate it. And I'll be seeing you this weekend.
No disrespect to Caston. I've just never been there. I had to Google it the other day. So looking forward to my visit. That's where I'll be Saturday. I'll be up there with the Alexandria-Rensselaer game.
Their girls basketball coach, by the way, friend of the show.
Is that right?
Yeah, Danny.
I'm looking forward to visit. I like going to new places, and this is my first visit there, and it stung a little bit that our 3 Madison County teams are all sent an hour or so away, but that's part of the fun of the postseason, right? You get to go on a long drive and get the team gets a caravan going with the bus and the fan bus, and it'll be fun.
Fun is certainly an adjective, Rob. Certainly an adjective. Yeah, Josh Douglas, by the way, coach of the Comets. But Rob, thanks so much, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Take care, guys.
All right, Danny, let's go ahead and let's kick it further up north. We're going to go up to the region now, joined by Grace Opinker of the NWI.com. Grace, what's up?
Thanks so much for having me on.
It's great to see you. Great to see you. Let's go down to Class A, and let's talk about this Marquette Catholic 21-4 taking on Tri-County 21-2. Marquette Catholic's played a pretty tough schedule, and this feels like another good test for them now if they want to keep moving on into the semi-state.
Yes, I think it's going to be a great matchup for them. They made a state appearance last year. They returned all of their players and kind of added a couple new ones into the mix. So with junior guard Lanaya Davis and sophomore Marissa Pleasant, I think they have a great shot heading into this regional game on Saturday.
Let's start the conversation there with Lanaya. I mean, the numbers this year remain phenomenal. Danny and I got a chance to see her up close at the state championship game last year and got to learn a lot about her going into that. But Grace, for you, what have your impressions been of her? And I mean, just how much fun has it been to see her play?
What's special about Lanaya is how athletic she is on the court. If she's not scoring, she's getting rebounds. She's creating turnovers. So I think it's just that athleticism from playing multiple sports that really helps her on the court. I know she's averaging close to 20 points and almost 9 rebounds, I think, right now. So I think she's going to be a big power player heading into Saturday's game.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with Lanaya's game, she's a downhill attacker. And I think we talked about it last year. We talked briefly about it this year. And it's almost like there's inevitability to Lanaya being a big story just like last year. But she's got a pretty sweet pull-up. And that's the one thing that I keep talking. She doesn't have to get all the way to the front of the rim. She doesn't try to get all the way to the front of the rim. Once she kind of gets that primary defender, she's just 1-2 steps and gets the pull up, and she hits that with regularity. The thing with Lanaya Davis is that teams start to give a step. And so her ability to shoot the three will always be a storyline. This year, the metrics are a little bit below probably where she wanted them to be at 30%, but all of her metrics are a little bit low. I don't know if that's an efficiency thing, if that's a shot selection thing, or if that's just a shot volume thing. She just has to score. But how Lanaya is guarded in any basketball game because she's such a downhill attacker, to me, is the storyline whenever Marquette Catholic is on the floor.
Interestingly, Danny, along those lines of the efficiency, she's upped her offensive rebounds, doubled her average from last year. Total rebounds gone up as well. Still making an impact on the defensive end. But then, like you said, I mean, the three-point shooting's dipped a little bit, but she's still shooting 49%. So 210 out of 432, which is lower than what she finished at last year. So an interesting kid, too. And then, obviously, too, you got to talk about a kid like Marissa Pleasant, the hero in last year's semi-state game. And she's built off that season, too, averaging 8 a game and a couple steals a game.
I think for being a sophomore still, she feels like an older upperclassman. Mm-hmm. She's not overwhelmed by the bigger stage. I think she's just ready to attack. And if she needs to grab rebounds or she needs to be on someone's best leading scorer, she's going to do that. But you can also, I think, depend on her to sink a couple of 3-pointers if she's needed.
Well, and let's just use Grace's quote there, depend on her. Katie depends on her, and she has every right to, because the kid made a big play last year en route to the state finals. She's another one of those kids that's just, I think in a couple of years, we're still going to be talking about Marissa Pleasant, and people will be like, she's still in school. How is that possible? Because having that big play when you're a freshman it just doesn't happen for freshmen. So I would expect her to play very calm and under control. And she is a nice Robin to Lanaya's Batman. And Katie needs that, because Grace brings up a good point. I mean, if you can get a couple threes, that defense that's so congested and loaded up on Lanaya tends to loosen up. Whether it's by design or whether it's just organically, just tends to loosen up if you can get a couple threes to go down. And Marissa is that kid that can put it on the net.
Well, even at the sectional semifinals when Marquette was playing Westville, Pleasant had 4 3-pointers in the first quarter.
Ooh,
I mean, she was
good.
just on fire. She ended up having 5 total in that game and then 22 total points. But if Davis wasn't scoring as much that game, and Pleasant picked up her pace, and I think that's how it's going to be this Saturday.
Can I ask you a question, Grace? When you have maybe an overwhelming favorite like Marquette Catholic, a lot of times in sports you see that the game is sometimes even won before it starts. Like, is there a fear factor with these? I mean, is there who stands in their way that's just like, you know what, we don't care who Katie is, and we don't care who Marquette Catholic is, and we don't care who the history is. We're going after you. I mean, is there that? Because it just seems like you was talking about 4 threes from Marissa Pleasant. Like, if you hang 4 threes and you think that Marquette Catholic is really good, you're done.
I don't know who stands in their way right now. You know, I think I was speaking with Katie after sectionals, and she kind of said, we know we're not going into a game overconfident. Yeah, we might have the advantage, but we still have to play reserved, and we just have to take it play by play. And I think that is what's assisting in their success this season. They're not going into a game thinking, yeah, we're probably going to win by 20. They're just taking it play by play, and it's just working in their favor.
Give me a Lafayette Central. If Marquette advances, if Lafayette Central Catholic advances, give me them in the state semifinals.
Good call, Hank.
Give me
That's
that
a really
as the
good call.
They
won't be scared.
I think that's the team who stands in their way from the North.
That's right. You're right. And you talked about that. Yeah, and they have the same history.
Mm-hmm.
The same amazing decorated history that Marquette Catholic does.
Give me that, and then I mean, out of the South, I'd take Borden, North Central, Farmersburg be interesting. Dubois, however you say it, out of the South, that'd be interesting too. Those would all be fun to see. Marquette Catholic, by the way, their only losses this season at Lake Central in overtime on the neutral floor against McCutcheon. So there's a sectional champ, a sectional runner-up, defending 4A state runner-up. Lost to Brebeuf in overtime at the end of December, and then turned around and Hammond Central got them by 9 in January, and they haven't lost since. So it's a really good resume, especially for a Class A team that's going up there and matching wits against a team like McCutcheon, like Lake Central, Hammond Central, even a Brebeuf, which can present some matchup problems for a smaller school, and they've handled it really well. On the other side, looking at Tri-County, I mean, just statistically, it feels like a very similarly constructed team with a couple kids who they depend on for the scoring with Sarah Zars, Hannah Arvin, and then beyond that, it just kind of scoring by committee, a lot of depth with numbers that may not blow you away, but over the course of a game, you get to that 50, 55-point mark, and you're in good shape. Danny, thoughts?
I don't. Not on that one. My apologies. I was like, I'm going to pick up my coffee and pretend like
I didn't want to put Grace on the spot, and I saw you going for the coffee, so that seemed like the move.
There's only so many hours in the day. Just check back with me on that.
That's right. By the way, Zars and Arvin are both shooting around or over 50%. So that'll be, if they can maintain that efficiency against Marquette Catholic, that'll be an interesting game. And I think I side with Grace. I think that's going to be a close game. Grace, before we get you out of here, though, I wanted to mention, or at least talk about Andrean versus Eastside. That's a bit of an uphill battle based on records for Andrean, but what do you make of that game?
Well, Andrean's going for its 3rd consecutive regional title this Saturday. I know they're 15-11 playing Eastside, who is 24-1, but I think what's different about Andrean is they have a very heavy 3A, 4A schedule. They're playing up majority of the year, so I'm not going to count them out. Also, senior center Maddie Walton, she's on the brink of 1,000 career points. So I'm really hoping that she's able to pull that through with a win on Saturday.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Grace, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me on.
All right. That was Grace Opinker of NWI.com. All right, Danny, now we're going to be joined by Brandon Allman, head coach down at Brownstown Central. Brownstown Central is preparing to take on a team that I'm looking at right now. They're getting ready to play. Coach, who are you playing this weekend?
North Posey.
North Posey. Danny, I knew that. It was North Posey. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing well. You guys?
I'm doing great. Thank you for hopping on with us. Apologies for the tardiness and getting you on, and also just the general fatigue in my voice.
Oh, no, you're fine. I'm humbled and honored to be on here. I don't deserve this.
We're pumped to have you on, man. You absolutely deserve this. You guys are having a hell of a year. It's great to see you back at this point of the year. I'll just start generally. How have things been going this year?
Going pretty well. We had a tough stretch there in December when we played Austin, Corden, Silver Creek, and Cathedral four games in a row. We lost 4 of those 4 straight games there, and then we had a hiccup after the start of the new year. Went down to Charlestown, and they just put it on us. We weren't ready to play, but other than that, we played pretty well for the most part, especially here coming down the stretch.
Focusing on the Charlestown game, and I suppose it's kind of a cliche question, but could you kind of tell that that's changed up in the girls a little bit, wake them up a little bit, so to speak, or were there injuries and some other things going on in the background?
No, that was just one of those wake-up games. I've always argued with Coach Dave Benner at Brownstown about, I never want to lose games, but he always says sometimes, it takes losing a game to be able to figure things out, and that was it. That was our wake-up call. Our practices have been so much more engaged. Our girls have been so much more engaged in practice. And I think that they knew that they didn't want to have any more losses on their record after that.
So with this group, how do you get to the mountaintop last year? How do you make sure everybody stays sharp, so to speak, and make sure that, do you have to do a lot as a coach to keep that hunger going after they've gotten there?
Yeah, especially with this group. I got a bunch of multi-sport athletes, and they've had several of them have had a lot of success in volleyball as well. But just trying to keep that hunger there has been tough at times. I love my girls, but we get lackadaisical at times. And I was shown a little bit in that Charlestown game. But when we are locked in, and this past weekend at sectional, we were locked in. And if we were able to defend at that level, I think we're really a hard team to beat.
Well, speaking of that, Brandon, thanks for being on tonight, by the way. I joked with Hank that I was going to issue you an apology because last year, so you guys navigate all the way through, we're getting ready to prep for our state tournament stuff, and I had 0 on Brownstown Central. And I don't know if you came out of nowhere. I don't know if I wasn't paying attention. I don't know what that's all about, okay? But it's not all that dissimilar this year. I don't know a lot about you. So my first question for you, just last year, did it catch you by surprise?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I thought that, we have the problem, and a lot of coaches told me that this is what made us so difficult to defend at times, is because we don't have that 1 or 2 girls that just can go get buckets. We spread it out. We are really balanced. I remember talking to Brad Borden, who was the head coach at Providence, who's now an assistant at Silver Creek. And he talked about, when you have to scout for 8, when you have to, prepare for 8 or 9 different girls that can put the thing in the hole, that makes you difficult to guard. So I think that our depth has been crucial to our success, not only last year, but this year as well.
Yeah, so you're back in the second weekend, okay? So tell us about the team. How'd you get here?
Well, thankfully, I've got out of my stubborn ways. I've always been a man-to-man, diehard man-to-man coach. And I sat down with Coach Julie Folks, who used to be at Transylvania University. And she went to a zone. She was kind of the same thing. And they had all kinds of success down there, won a national championship and had one of the longest winning streaks. And she started showing me stats and breaking down a zone. And, we kind of switched that last year, arguably because I didn't feel like we could contain the ball. And if you can't contain the ball in this game, then, you don't have really a chance to win. So we have adapted that, but I just have a lot of girls that buy in and compete their butts off. And, that's just what I ask. Kind of take my persona a little bit. I was I would consider myself an average point guard player, just smart, knew how to play and played hard. And I got girls who are kind of like that and buy into that.
And you went even front, or did you implement an odd front, or is it something creative?
It has some different rules, but it's a 2-3, but we actually started out more like a 1-1-3.
So you stack it.
Yeah, and we try to pick up a little bit in the backcourt. We're not really effective at that, I should say, but we do have some length. And just once again, I think that our biggest strength is just girls understanding and just competing, and we do a really good job with scouting and being able to try to take away, the other team's one or two options.
Brandon, that's interesting. So Lawrence North went to a stacked zone. Warsaw and Lake Krebs, they run a stacked zone. Josh Sable at Brownsburg, he stacked his 2-3. I mean, it's starting to be, you go through waves in basketball, right? It's just, whatever the hot thing is, whether it's chin offense or dribble drive or central third ball screen on the defensive side, that's it this year. How much carryover do you have from last year's team? Because the reason why I ask that is sometimes when you change philosophies like that, you get more engagement from your kids because they have to lock in. So do you have a lot of returners from last year? And if so, tell us about them.
We do. We have 8. I have 10 girls who will play some varsity, 8 that get the majority of the minutes, and 8 of those are returning from last year that got that played in the state finals. So that you're spot on, Danny, that the engagement, they really were excited when we talked about going to zone, and they have bought in, and, just us continuing, myself as a coach, continuing to learn and get better at teaching it as well, has definitely helped as well. But yeah, when we ever even think about going man at times, they hate me for it.
I'll ask you one more question before I throw it back to Hank. And it's more my own personal experience with Brownstown Central is the root to the question. But do you guys lean into the fact that people like me just don't know anything about you? I mean, do you lean into an underdog role and let's just show them?
I do. I'm a big underdog guy. I feel like that's myself in a nutshell. I've always been undersized and an underdog, and we do. I probably play into that more so than others, and I'm okay with that.
So, Brandon, not only do you have the basketball run last year, but I mean, you have girls that I saw just a few months ago playing in Muncie for a state volleyball title. Kinsey Dean's one of them, right? And
yep.
Klosterman, like you have some big players playing big minutes for you that have that experience.
Yeah, Kinsey Dean, Sophie Wishmeyer, and Addison Darledge were all a part of that state team. And I know Danny will be familiar with this name. A girl that would have been a big time player for us this year, in Claire Brock. She was on that state team, and unfortunately, she had to have a couple eye surgeries this fall and this winter. So we're missing her, which she was a vital piece for us this summer. And you can't replace, we're not very big. 5'9" is as tall as we go. And, she's 6 foot and long and athletic, and, would definitely be able to help us. But our girls have been able to, it's always that next person up role as well. And we've been able to fill that void even with her missing.
How are practices different this time of year? Like, can you tell a noticeable difference once the regular season's over and you got, girls that have been through it now? I guess even just compared to last year.
Yeah, for sure. The focus, and 5 seniors now compared to 1 last year. The leadership that they show, they know that if they lose now, they're done. And just once again, just the engagement in our practices have been second to none. So since that Charlestown loss, and just knowing that if they lose, we're going home.
That loss to Charlestown, by the way, for those listening, January 16th, and you guys have read off 3, 6, 7, 8 wins in a row since then. One broad question for me, Brandon, as we wrap things up, just North Posey, what jumps out to you with them, and what makes them such a unique matchup?
They're really good. They are really good. They have some length. I think they're going to start. I think they only list her at 5'10", but she looks at 6 foot to me on film. Kind of reminds me of Amber Treader from Forest Park a few years ago when we played them. The year they completed their second state championship run. They are unique. They're going to play some man-to-man, and they like to run and jump out of it. Something that we haven't seen a whole lot. We've seen a little bit of that. Cathedral did that a little bit to us some and hurt us. But they play a loaded schedule. Two of their losses are to Gibson Southern. who, of course, Kyle Brasher, man, what a job he does down there. Just won the 4A sectional, and another loss was to Washington, who's playing in the 3A regional. And, they've got wins over Evansville Central and Evansville Wrights, a couple big schools down there that I know had great seasons as well. So they're gonna get after us and once again run and jump and be methodical. A lot of ball screen offense stuff, and so.
Was that Alyssa Heath is the one that popped out to you, the one that reminded you of Amber Treader?
Yes, exactly. And I think she wears the same number because I think if I remember right, Treader was 12, I believe, and she wears number 12. And I think she's averaging about 16 points a game and doesn't do anything flashy. She just gets the job done.
That's some massively high praise. I saw Treader her last couple of years here. I mean, she was a heck of a player. Oh yeah, like I said, we had them that year. We were in the regional at Crawford County too. We had them on the ropes. We got down 13-0, came back and had a 4-point lead with a few minutes to go and coughed it up a couple times, and Treader made us pay. Yeah. Well, Brandon, best of luck to you this weekend, man. Thank you so much for coming on with us. It was a pleasure talking with you.
No, appreciate it. Big fan. Like I said earlier, watch the scores table all the time. So appreciate what you guys do. Danny in the AAU world and doing things for girls AAU basketball, and Brian just showcasing female athletes is awesome. I can't say thank you enough.
I appreciate it, Brandon. Best of luck to you on the call tonight. Have fun with that.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Take care. Brandon Allman, head coach over at Brownstown Central. Danny and I will be back with another guest here momentarily. Move down to Class A now, and we are joined by Brady Wiles, head coach of Carroll, Flora. Carroll, Flora is getting ready to take on – I need to have this information at the right end. I need to do a better job with this. This is my fault. Carroll, Flora, 18-7, is getting ready to take on North Miami, 15-10. Brady, what's up, man?
Good evening. Thanks for having me. Yep, play North Miami Saturday. We're excited for it.
How are things going this season? I mean, Allie Harness graduates, just such a prolific scorer, and here you guys are sectional champions competing for a state title. I mean, what's been clicking for this group?
Yeah, it's a special group, honestly. We came into this season with not very high expectations. We looked at our schedule and, kind of questioned whether we'd get to 10 wins or anything like that. So, to graduate 4,000 points of scoring in one class and come out with 18 wins and a sectional title, it's been a blast. And this has been a pretty fun group to coach.
So what is it? Sorry for jumping right back into questions as a child is screaming, but what is it about this group that's enabled to have them to have this success? I mean, like you said, you graduated so many points from last year. For this group to not really skip a beat, I mean, that's pretty remarkable. What's the magic sauce with these kids?
Yeah, we changed our identity, and I think that's what was key to our success. In the past, we tried to score 60 to 70 points a game. This year we bought into defense, and honestly, we had to depend on it. So, we had really two girls that had varsity experience, and they were role players on a team. Like I said, led by Harness and Wagner, but they bought into it. They played a lot of off-season basketball, and Jillian turned into one of the better players in our area at the small school level. So it was special to watch.
Coach, is this asking to self-evaluate here? Is this your best coaching job? You got to feel pretty good about this one, right?
I mean, it feels good. I'm not going to lie, but I'm very
brag
blessed.
On yourself, man.
It's pretty special. I mean, any doubters that, we didn't get it done the last 2 years, and I'm sure there were doubters out there, and I'm sure, honestly, us as a staff questioned some things as well, but I'm blessed with amazing coaches. I mean, one of my assistants played D1 basketball at Dayton, another one played D2 at Oakland City. I've got another varsity coach that's on my staff. So, I mean, I'm very blessed with, some of the best basketball minds around, and, I got to give them credit. So.
And Brady, as a coach, I have to ask you this, but I am fascinated when coaches change their philosophy. You had mentioned that just a couple of sentences ago in the last answer. Can you give us a little more specifics regarding that? I mean, what are those conversations like? Is this your idea? Is this one of your coaches that you trust very much that says, hey, listen, we can't play the way we did last year? Did the kids come to you? Just what's the evolution of that philosophy change, and how did you go about implementing it?
Yeah. I personally think, especially high school basketball, being able to change your philosophies and adapt to the team that you have is key to success. Especially at a 1A school, you are what you develop. And luckily we have parents that are very involved and that are great basketball minds that help develop these kids. But, as a coaching staff and as players, it kind of just naturally happened. We knew we weren't going to score 60 points a game. And it, like I said, we just bought into it, and they bought into it pretty early on in the season. So, if you don't change who you are, you're not going to be a coach very long. That's just my opinion.
Do the postseason shortcomings that you mentioned, that you alluded to, does that factor in, accelerate, put a little more urgency in the revamp?
To be honest with you, I mean, it hurt bad. We were heavily invested into that senior class last year. And to be honest with you, going through the pain, I mean, it took a couple months. I'm not going to lie. I couldn't imagine us, having another sectional opportunity for another few years, if I'm being honest with you. But, we worked hard, and the girls worked hard, and, I've definitely learned not to take sectionals for granted. And when you do win one, you celebrate the heck out of it.
Just to contextualize the pieces that you lost Allie Harness, 21 points a game, Madison Wagner, 13 points a game, and then Lainey Johnson at 8 points a game. I mean, that's a healthy amount of scoring. And like you said, almost 4,000 points, because both Wagner and Harness were 1,000+ point scorers, right?
Yeah. Harness was 2,000 point scorer, was a 1,500 point scorer. So, at a 1A school, we had 10 girls in our program last year at quote unquote JV and varsity, and 7 of them were seniors. So, we had a homeschool girl move in, and we also had a very good freshman class, and then 2 role players that have stepped up to be, in this area, 2 of the better players in the area. So the pieces were there. And it was really special just to see that develop throughout the season.
How about Jillian Saltz? Goes from averaging 5 a game last year as a sophomore to now 14.5, your leading scorer as a junior. What's that kid been doing to shine like she has?
Yeah, she she got on an AAU team, always 100, and just stays in the gym all the time. I mean, obviously, being 6 foot, 6'1", and having guard skills, again, especially at a small school, you can do a lot with that. And she's athletic. She runs cross country. And she's a special athlete and even a better kid. So it's fun to watch her develop.
Was her production? I mean, it's like 14 and like at 7.5 rebounds too. Her field goal percentage is up where it should be, almost 50% per game. Is this expected? I mean, did she end the season last year thinking I'm going to be the piece next year? Or is this all just a crash course and you were learning at the beginning of the season like she was?
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, we knew that we had to have this out of her for us to succeed. And, I kind of use the analogy, we squeezed the lemon as hard as we could and got every ounce of juice out of it. And, I credit her. I mean, we pushed her hard and put pressure on her, to be honest with you. And, I couldn't be more proud of Jillian. Did I think she would average, 15 and almost 10? I don't know, but we definitely needed it. And, we've rode her pretty hard.
So let's look ahead now to this matchup that you have coming up against North Miami. What jumps out to you with them? What about this matchup do you like, you not like, etc.?
Yeah, well, it's fun. It's a school that's fairly close to us, probably 45 minutes away. Then we got to go down to West Dell, about an hour and a half away. So it's kind of crazy, but, just thankful for the opportunity. North Miami's led by two very good players, and then a lot of good role players around them. So, point guard number 10, Musol, kind of does it all and can shoot from everywhere. I think she's in the Always 100 program. I'm actually with Jillian is what I learned this evening. So that was kind of cool. And then sophomore, Donaldson, number 21, she's a heck of a player. I mean, 5'11", probably.
Yep.
Really can
Averaging
shoot
a double-double.
Double. And that's another kid that you look at last year's stats. She took a massive step forward. And honestly, she's right there as the best player on their team as well. So got to find a way to contain them. And then, they've got 3 other girls in their starting lineup that play their role. And you look at their sectional championship, number 32 hits 5 threes in the game and really carries them through Delville. So, it's going to be a tough matchup. And, but, we're both, I think it'll be a great game. I think John Herald has it as a 1-point game, and I'd love for that result to be the case, us up by 1. So, but it's going to be a heck of a challenge. And those, especially those 2 girls they're very good, very, very good basketball players.
Awesome. Well, Brady, thanks so much for talking with us. It's great to see you, man, and best of luck this weekend.
Brady, just
Awesome.
a side note, I am now 100% rooting for you because sitting on the floor, hiding around the corner behind a doorway, sectional week to find time to talk to us that's awesome.
Well, thanks. I got a little one out there.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to avoid.
I love it.
Little one crying, dog barking, the perils, I guess, of parenting during postseason basketball.
Yeah, thank you.
Good stuff.
Good luck,
Take care,
Brady.
man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
For Carroll, Flora head coach Brady Wiles. Daniel, I'll give you one thought before we bring on Riley and Ava Wheeler. Riley Rarick and Ava Wheeler.
He deserves it. I mean, every time. I mean, Harness. If for those of you guys that remember, I mean, Indian All-Star, like really good player. I remember watching her in the Indiana Junior All-Star game, and she's out there with Spreen, and she's out there with Wilson and Woodard, and all those really good 24s. And here's Harness. I think in that Junior All-Star game, she just like busted 4 first half threes or something like that, and I was like, whoa. Then when they lose in sectional, you're like, how does anybody beat a Class A team with Allie Harness on it? And I have been there, man. I've been there as a coach, man, where you're just like this. It just doesn't make sense. So sometimes the basketball gods talk to you in different ways and weird ways. And so who knows, maybe Harness graduates and it's no shot at Allie. Maybe Brady learns a lot about being a coach and preparing for the postseason. And maybe he finds himself in the 3rd weekend because they got a chance to.
I think they were 2A for this past cycle.
That's right. They were 2A.
Yeah,
You're
them and
right.
Lafayette Central Catholic. I think the team that got on last year both moved down. Favorite Allie Harness story, by the way, is the time that she went for like 40-something points, like 2 broken hands or 2 broken wrists. That was my introduction to Allie Harness. Once Riley is able to turn on her camera, we'll bring on Ava and Riley. There she is. We'll go ahead and bring them on right now as I get the camera situated. How are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Great, Ava. It's great to see you guys. How's sectional prep week going, or regional prep week going?
Pretty good. We had practice yesterday and today, despite the snow, and it's going pretty well.
Yeah.
You guys got snow down there.
We did. Yeah, we didn't have school
Yeah.
today.
Oh, nice. That's a fun little perk. So talk to us about Saturday. I mean, what was it like finally breaking through, finally getting over that hump and getting to celebrate a sectional championship? Ava, why don't you start us?
I think it felt pretty good. We haven't ever won a sectional, me and Riley, so it was definitely a pretty good experience for us, and I think we played really well as a team all together.
Riley, what about for you? What was that experience like again to cut down those nets finally?
Yeah, we've fallen short the past 2 years, so it was just really special for us to finally be able to win one.
And obviously, this was a big talking point when I met you guys, the way that Lanesville game ended and then the weirdness of having to go back and play 4 overtimes. I mean, what was that like going back and playing 4 minutes of a basketball game that you thought you'd already won?
Yeah, we were kind of mad at the situation, so I think that helped us get there, and we were already mad at the situation. So when we won, we were very, very excited. I think we were more excited to win that one than sectional. if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
So now I can ask officially on the air. I think we jumped the gun, I guess technically jumped the gun after the game itself. But how does it feel too, and what does it mean to finally get one over on Lanesville, a team that's kind of been the cause of a lot of sadness and heartbreak through the first couple of years of your guys' career? Ava?
I think it feels really good. Whenever we went for like the actual real game, not the overtime game, we were kind of upset about the whole thing because like we left thinking that we won. And so we were excited, and then all this stuff happened the next day and everybody was saying that we didn't actually win. And so I think that kind of upset us, but I think the game was good. I think we wanted to win really bad because like Riley said, we lost the past 2 years to them, not just like in sectionals, but in the regular season. So I think we really wanted to win, and I think they kind of took it away from us at first, but we got it back, obviously.
Riley, did it help having, I mean, obviously just a little 4-minute segment, but did it help playing a rival, playing a team of that caliber just to kind of get you focused and settled in mentally and ahead of sectionals?
Yes, I think that was really important. I'm kind of glad that we did have that, like we waited till closer to end of season to play that game, because I think it just helped us focus more. Like after that, we were really locked in because we just wanted to continue winning after that one and keep going on a stretch. So I think that helped us.
I'll ask one broad question about the matchup before I toss it over to Danny. But Borden coming in 19-5, playing Vincennes Revet 15-10. Just what have you guys seen from them on film? What jumps out to you as you watch them?
I think we saw some size with them. They have like a girl that's like 6'2". I've never seen them actually play besides like the film that we've watched, but I think it's definitely going to be a good game, a good matchup. Never seen them anywhere, like I said, but they have some size, and like we have a little bit of size, but yeah, not much.
Yeah, they're really long and they press a lot. They like pressure, and I think we thrive on that. Like we like when teams pressure us because we handle that really well. So I'm just hoping that we can pull through.
So I'm fascinated. I want to take the conversation kind of a different direction. We go back to the Charlie Hughes event at HSE in the summer. Okay, so it's the June and you're playing Marquette Catholic, and then there's idiots like me and Hank on the baseline being like, that's a state championship preview, and it's June. Like you're not even enrolled in school. So how have you dealt with maybe the level of expectation that's around your locker room and your team? Is that something that you guys hear, that you think on your own? Does it motivate you? Just talk about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on us, I feel, because people have been saying like, oh, you guys should win state this year. You guys should go all the way. But we just have to focus on how we're playing and play as a team and not look that far ahead. We have to go one step at a time.
Ava, how do you handle the expectations? And I guess just inside the locker room as to the team leaders, like is that something you guys talk about as a team?
I think as a team, we talk about taking like each team one by one. We only focus on one team, and like we talk about before games usually how we do have a target on our back, but we try to just like set that aside and just focus on playing our basketball, because I think that's the best basketball that we can play, is playing our basketball and not playing to our competition. So yeah, I think that's what helps us play through.
And I'll ask you, Riley, to talk about what it's like to play with Ava, and then Ava, I'll ask you to talk about what it's like playing with Riley. When people talk about you collectively, it's always like, well, 2 Division I recruits at a Class A school, they get to play together, so on and so forth. But it doesn't always work. Like it doesn't always work, and you can't just walk out there and expect to win basketball games because of who's recruiting you. So Riley, talk about Ava and some of the things that she does to make you better, and then Ava, same question.
I love playing with Ava. I feel like we play kind of the same. So really, like, we both can pass each other the ball. And, like, I know if I pass Ava in the post, more than 90% of the time she's going to score it. So I just know I have a lot of trust in Ava as a player.
Yeah, I enjoy playing with Riley. We've been playing together since 8th grade, since I joined her mom's AAU team. And I think, like, since the beginning, I just realized that we were kind of like the same player, like she said. I think we both can score inside and out. And I think we both have, like, a pretty high basketball IQ. And so I think that helps us bond more on the court.
And Riley, what's it like having Mom on the bench?
Oh, I love it. It's a lot better than when she was my like head coach in junior high and my AAU coach. She's chilled out a lot more, so I like her being on the bench.
Does she coach you more or less because of the relationship, obviously, that you have at home?
Probably more, but I
More,
like it.
okay.
Yeah, I like her being my coach. She's a lot more positive than I would expect her to be, so I enjoy that.
What's Vic like as a coach? I got a chance to meet him. I've had a few conversations with him. He seems like a very nice guy. You know, fires from the hip a lot, which I appreciate as a journalist. But what's he like as a coach?
He's cool. I think it depends on the day, what day you get him. He could be like really chilled out, and we could have like a great day at practice or a good day at a game, and then the next day he could just not be in the mood to talk to any of us. But it just depends.
You adapt and adjust. Brag on some of your teammates. I mean, Coach sent me over some of the numbers. AJ Mallett's having a great year for you guys. McKenna Mullins putting up big numbers. Emma Hart's contributing a lot on the glass. I mean, just go ahead and brag about them and tell us about this group that you guys have this year.
I want to talk about Emma. I love playing with Emma. She's done a lot for us this year, I feel like, and last year. But the jump from last year to this year has been really big for Emma. She needs to look to score more a lot, I think. But overall, I think she's improved a lot, and she's one of our best players. She can get boards, and she can catch almost anything. I love passing the ball to her.
Yeah, I think McKenna, it's kind of crazy to me how she hasn't played since 8th grade, because she's, like you said, she's put up numbers for us, and like she helps us on the offensive and defensive end. And so it's kind of weird to like think that we haven't played basketball since 8th grade, because she's just like any of us, I feel like it just doesn't seem like that. And I think AJ, she's a pretty good shooter for us, and she's good defensively too. So it really she helps us on both sides of the court also.
What do you expect this atmosphere to be like Saturday when you guys take the floor?
It's going to be pretty good. I'm excited.
Yeah.
With the stands packed black and red on Saturday for that sectional championship?
Yeah, we have a great community. We love our fans. They're always there for us. So it's going to be even bigger Saturday. So, yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, best of luck to you guys on Saturday. Thanks so much for hopping on with us, and hopefully we'll be talking again soon in a couple weeks, maybe downtown.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
See you, girls.
Riley Rarick and Ava Wheeler of Borden with us on the scorers table. They're a fun team to watch.
They're a fun, super fun team. That's the South favorite. That's the statistical favorite, but also the resume favorite too. Those two kids. Look, sometimes when you watch at least this is our hope, right? You go to these. There's not that many games left, right? There's only 64 teams left. There's only 16 left in each class, and there's the storylines. That's the storyline on the South side in A. Is Lanesville goes to 2A. They have the disappointment. They have Riley Rarick and Ava Wheeler. That's the story. And if they're fortunate enough to get by the regional round and throw themselves into semi-state, you're right. I mean, it's you even said it on the exit to the interview. You're like, hey, maybe downtown. Like the expectation is there. They know it. We know it. Everyone knows it. But that's the thing to follow. But you will not be bored watching a Class A basketball game with Riley Rarick and Ava Wheeler on the floor.
And then, I mean, like they talked about some of their teammates. I mean, they have weapons everywhere. Like it's a pretty deep Class A.
Yeah, that Mallett kid's good.
Yeah, just in terms of their scoring and what they bring, they have some depth there. They're going to be a fun team to follow for sure.
Yep.
And by the magic of StreamYard Studios, only seconds have passed in podcast time, but in real life, it's been about half an hour since we're in the studio. But we're joined now by Kyle Sokeland, Evansville Courier Press, to talk about some of the Evansville area schools. Kyle, let's start in Class 2A with Lanesville versus South Knox. That's a fascinating matchup. Just in terms of a contrast to style, South Knox is capable of running up a score real quick and lighting up a scoreboard. Lanesville's at its best when they're able to kind of grind you down and just what Danny describes as the amoeba zone and the way they're able to defend teams. Just give us your initial read on that matchup.
Yeah, my initial read when I was working on my preview is offense versus defense. South Knox averages like 70, almost 75 points or something ridiculous, and then Lanesville allows 30. So I kind of wish there's so many good games in my area that I kind of wish I could be at 4 or 5 locations. But this one really intrigues me because South Knox just went through an emotional gauntlet because they beat North Knox on their home floor in the sectional with 3,000, 4,000 people there. Now they have to get the 2-time state champion playing up a class and still beating teams. Mm-hmm. So even if there's the number one, like one of my lines in my preview is the road is not easy for this number one team because look at who they faced the first 2 weekends. So I would really intrigued to see if South Knox can score on them and who does it. Because Elbow and Bryn Hill, but maybe it's Kendall Hill this time. Maybe Madison Parrish hits a couple buckets. And I think Grace Detweiler can also score 10 points in the drop of a hat. So it's very, very intriguing matchup.
It's going to have to be some of that secondary score, right, Danny? I mean, just the way, like, you have Crozier, Brumley, and Allen there. I mean, that's 3 really good defenders there for Lanesville and some of those other kids that they have that they've been bringing along over the course of the season.
I think it's a unique game for South Knox because it's a unique defense that they have to face. Like Holly and I spoke earlier in the week, and they've never – I mean, because they were in different classes, they never played against the Lanesville zone. They don't have any experience in how it rotates. And when you have a defense that's going to rotate differently based on what Crozier does, I think that's going to present some challenges. I wouldn't be surprised to answer your question. I do think it is going to be the secondary scoring, but if you look back at the Hall of Fame, they were able to get, particularly in the evening game against Homestead, they were able to get Madison Parrish and Bren Hill, those 2 kids particularly, some shots at the rim. I think that might be there. And because I think they're unique, again, I keep talking about getting behind these zones. Getting behind the Lanesville zone is going to pull Shelby Allen out of the middle of the zone, that's why I think South Knox is going to get some opportunities at the rim. But what's unique about South Knox is they have talented kids that you're throwing it to behind the zone, right? I mean, even if you use Kendall Hill to get by the first level of defense, you still have really, really good players that you're throwing the ball to, whether it's Grace Detweiler, whether it's Kendall's sister Bren, Parrish we had mentioned. But I think this is a unique thing for Holly because it's going to be – you can watch all the film you want, but until you really get into – because I'm stumbling around here. Let me reset that.
It's hard to see it.
There's no way to simulate it in practice.
Mm-hmm.
And when there's no way to simulate it in practice, the first quarter of that game, I think you're going to see them feeling things out. But if they can get behind the zone, they're going to pull Shelby out of the middle. They have too many weapons. I think they're good. But can they get behind it?
And the thing with Lanesville, like they have 3 really good scorers with those kids that I mentioned, Crozier, Allen, and Brumley.
Yep.
But do they have enough? I'm not sure even during that feeling out period if Lanesville has enough firepower to build a lead. You know what I mean? Like to get ahead, but 7-10, get it up by a few possessions that you're okay and you can weather a storm. Like I think they want to keep this a really low scoring game. I think it's going to just by Lanesville's nature, if they're to win this game, keep it close, it's going to be a low scoring game. But that'll be curious, Danny, to see how that feeling out period, what plays out. Because I mean, you're right. If you've never seen it before, but then again, it's really slow Marquette Catholic last year. You think back to that game, like that was, from what I remember, that was a pretty fast start to that game. Yeah,
and they get behind the zone totally differently. They do downhill attacking with Lanaya Davis, right? I expect Holly to try to pass through it. It's going to be so interesting. That's a smart point about the lead. It is definitely easier to play that kind of zone with the lead, because if you don't have the lead, now you're not just trying to get stops. Now you're almost trying to create turnovers. And although they do turn a lot of teams over, I don't know that they turn a lot of teams over in that zone like South Knox. So, I'm sure Kyle will say this when I throw it to him next, but I mean, South Knox is going to have to take care of the ball. I mean, if they can take care of the ball, I think that's going to go a long ways to making Lanesville's afternoon really long.
No, you're right. And I'm thinking back to their win against Central, and the reason they fell behind almost 10 points was Central defense. I mean, I think Bob went off late in that game, but they were really struggling to hold on to the ball and just move it up the court.
That atmosphere that night, I mean, it's going to be nuts. Like Lanesville, I've said it before, but I mean, they're always the best, one of the best teams shown out at the state championship game these past couple of years. You know, they're going to load it up. South Knox has one of the best teams in the state. You know, they're going to bring heat. They showed up really well at the Hall of Fame Classic. That's going to be an unreal environment. And two, that's one of those things where I'm curious how the experience factor plays into it all, because Lanesville's been here, done that. And like we've always talked about with South Knox, they've done it now once. Now the stage keeps getting bigger and bigger, and it's new pressure, new challenges, new things to worry about. So that'll be an interesting little dynamic to keep an eye on there. One more game to discuss with you, Kyle, before we get out of here. Brownstown Central versus North Posey. 19-6 North Posey's in your coverage area. I'll let you just give Danny and I some knowledge on North Posey.
Yeah, I was just at practice here earlier this week just to catch up with them. It is a lot of juniors for one, and they're all kind of the same player. They're like a lot of guards, a lot of just athletic kids. But I think the real anchor of the team is their forward senior, Alyssa Heath, who just went over 1,000 points in the sectional. She's kind of long. She's not really like a true brute in the post, but just kind of move around. I mean, just to drive that home, she's like a 6-foot second baseman in softball. So yeah, she can move a little bit. She might be shortstop this year. I don't know, but she's been second base on some of those teams that went to state. But their calling card since Kevin Cobb came over, and this is his first year, is they want to pressure the heck out of you. They want to force turnovers, and they want to get up and go. Because I saw them a little bit against Wrights in the second half. They really suffocated Wrights. Like Wrights did not want anything to do with that game, and they really struggled because North Posey wants to make you mad and wants you to just give them the ball and go. So I think, and that's kind of what coach talked about in practice. What can Brownstown do against their pressure defense? That might be the key to the game, because if North Posey plays defense like they have a shot. Now, I think he didn't know much against Brownstown, but they just went to the state championship. Like we've been talking, experience matters, and North Posey hasn't won in a decade. I don't think they've won a sectional game in a decade. And now Brownstown just made that surprise run. So that's another sneaky good one. I wouldn't put on the list of some of my other games, but I'll be interested to see what the score is.
Absolutely. Well, Kyle, thanks so much, man, for hopping on with us. Have fun on Saturday. I'm guessing we'll be chatting on Sunday, but Godspeed with the writing this week, buddy. We'll talk soon.
Yeah, hopefully my apartment lighting passes Danny's eye test next time.
It's not my – hey, listen, it's not my eye test, Stoke. Just,
I like it. It's a rustic look.
Ava Wheeler was just ahead.
She was, yeah. All right, Danny, we're going to pivot over to the South Bend area, bring on friend of the show, Austin Hough. Austin has been hanging out in the waiting room across 2 different shows for the past 30 minutes to an hour. I appreciate him doing so. And again,
thank God I didn't ask you when it originally started, and I had been sitting here for 3 hours. That would have been tough. But
I apologize profusely. I could not be any sorrier for how long we kept you back there.
It's fine. Us Northerners, we don't exist, so it's fine.
That's true. Austin, I'm gonna give you the reins. I'm gonna give you the reins and just let you take us away on that Elkhart Christian-Fremont game, 2 of the teams in your area, and just your thoughts. We'll start there in Class A.
Yeah, it's a very interesting game. So it's kind of hard to get a read on Fremont. They don't have stats online, so I can't sit here and say, oh, this person is our leading scorer. But Elkhart Christian is, if you don't know who they are, there's a good reason, because they've only been around really for 20 years as an IHSAA program. This is their first ever sectional championship. 20-5 record. They only have 1 senior, and she really doesn't play much. So they're going to have their whole team coming back next year. Ivy Clapsaddle is their leading scorer at 13 points. They had 2 freshmen, second and third in scoring, Lily Maxwell and Kyla Yordi. It felt like it was going to be a 50-50 game in their sectional final against North Judson San Pierre, and they crushed them 62-35. So I am kind of fascinated to see how this young kind of upstart Eagles team handles another big moment. They got to make a long drive to Belmont. It's almost a 2-hour drive for them for the regional game, while Fremont's got to go about 40 minutes. So, but it should be fascinating. They again kind of came out of nowhere this year. 20 wins, by far the most in a single season ever in program history. So, their boys basketball team went to semi-state last year, kind of called lightning in a bottle. And, this feels very similar in that regard, where this is a very young team, maybe catching lightning in a bottle, and they could be playing next weekend, for a chance to go to state, which would be crazy.
Seems kind of be the MO up there with some of those small schools. I mean, you had Marquette Catholic a year ago. Now you got them. I mean, it's a fun little trend up there, huh?
Yeah. These 1A schools just love popping up out of nowhere. It's like the private schools too. You can't be a 1A public school up here and win. So Bethany Christian 2 seasons ago, Bethany Christian in Goshen 2023 lost to Lanesville in the final. That was a great run. Marquette Catholic and now Elkhart Christian maybe trying to crash the party a little bit.
Good stuff. Let's move up to Class 2A in a game that I think is going to be really good. I have it as one of the 10 best offerings for this Saturday. That's Whitko 20-4 versus Bremen 24-2. First of all, did I nail the pronunciation of BRE?
Whitko, yes, Whitko.
No,
yeah,
the other
it's
one.
Whitley and Kosciuszko County. It's right on the line. So
that's good to know. Is it Bremen or Bremen?
Bremen.
Yes,
Long
Two for two.
And I avoided saying the R school from Evansville, so I didn't embarrass myself in front of Sokeland. Like, this is really coming up me, guys. Like this, Danny and I are going on 24 hours of podcasting together, and I'm really starting to hit my stride. This is exciting. Austin, what jumps out to me immediately is just how identical these teams are. I mean, it's crazy. They both score in the 50s on average. They rebound well. They turn teams over at a decent rate. I tried diving into the shooting statistics to see if there'd be an edge one way or the other. There isn't. It's like the Spider-Man meme. It's crazy. What do you make of this thing?
Yeah, I mean, so first off, shout out to Whitko for upsetting Bluffton. That was kind of one of the bigger surprises of the night on Saturday. Obviously, you guys down there with Lawrence North over Lawrence Central took the headlines, but Bluffton on their home court was kind of not a heavy favorite, but a favorite in that sectional, and Whitko took it, beat them, and it was impressive. So, they obviously, they have 3 girls all score more than 12 points a game. The Stonebreaker sisters, I'm guessing they're sisters. If they're not, I apologize, but they kind of lead Fremont. I'm more familiar with Bremen, of course. They are our coverage area, and already the most wins in program history for a single season at 24. Obviously, they want to win 28 and finish this off, but they're playing great. I mean, it was a very workmanlike performance in the sectional. They were the favorite. They took care of business. None of the games were really that close. LaVille a little bit, but they just handled their business. They love playing kind of a 2-3 zone and shutting down people. They're one of the best defensive teams in the state. And you have, 3 legitimate, scorers on the outside there, and Kyla Foster, Eliana Grubbs, and Emma Kincaid, all averaging, again, more than 12 points a game. Foster had 36 in the sectional final, single-handedly outscored Knox by herself. Knox was a 6-18 team. I mean, no disrespect to them, but
I mean,
Foster,
still though, you gotta put the ball in the hole.
But when Foster gets going, she had 36 against South Bend Adams 2 weeks ago at the end of the regular season to get her the career scoring record. She actually took it from her sister, so that was kind of a fun little fact. So I love this Bremen team. I've been talking about them a lot all year. They just have such balance on offense, and their defense is stymied. And they made the Final Four in Class 3A last year. I know we've talked about that before, but it's a very, they're an experienced team, right? We talk about the experience. We'll talk about that with the 4A game coming up too a little bit. But I like Bremen's experience. I like their defense. Their whole team has been together, like this basically the last 2 seasons. And, if you're going to talk about travel, they're slightly closer to Caston than or the Winnemac. No, they're at Caston. Sorry, they're at Caston. They're slightly closer to Caston than Whitko. So if you're going to go by who has the shorter bus route, maybe more fans get there. So I kind of like this Bremen team a lot. And with 2A feeling relatively wide open in the north, they're in position to maybe really get down to Cambridge Fieldhouse.
It is interesting, Dan, and I think you and I have probably talked about this, but the 2A North, like South Knox, is just such a power. It's I don't want to describe it as a black hole because that kind of has a negative connotation, but they just they draw so much of the attention and so much of the conversation is focused on them, deservedly so, because I mean they are the real deal. They are not a 2A team, but you forget, there's a whole other half of the bracket that once they get by Lane's one, all these other little landmines that are out there. There's some really good teams on the north side too, and Bremen and Whitko are certainly two of them. Whitko, by the way, they played a slightly tougher schedule per the numbers, and then like Austin mentioned, you had the Phillips kid, Stonebreaker, the two Stonebreakers, and then senior Brazier Harrison, who returned in mid-January after missing 11 games. So they're a team that's getting healthier as well. That's going to be a really fun game.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Austin, we thank you so much for joining us to talk with us about these Class A and 2A schools. Danny and I, we're going to stick around. We're going to wrap this thing up, bud. All right, so this is our last segment recording the Class A 2A podcast. Danny and I have been out on this class for probably like 2 hours cumulative now, an hour and 15 episode. So what we're going to do is we're going to run through just a couple of the other games, mostly involving Central Indiana teams, because those are the ones that I'm most familiar with. Sheridan has a game against Lewis Cass. Just be forthright in my prediction. I wrote, I'm not picking against Kenzie Garner because Kenzie Garner is really good supporting cast, a lot of experience there. I think they're gonna win pretty comfortably. Monrovia-Parke Heritage, it's going to be an uphill climb there for Monrovia, but I've got some good pieces over there, Dan. I like what Monrovia has. It's going to be a tough battle there against Parke Heritage. Parke Heritage runs a little bit deep with 10 players who appeared in a lot of games. They got a senior trio with Simpson, Jenkins, and Ramsey. But, Monrovia they got Zoe Walls, the freshman who's been playing out of her mind. I mean, you have a kid like that, and Cameron Wolf, another freshman, and a sophomore in Grace Deaton that you can pair with a player like Emery Newland, who has the postseason experience from both basketball, well, not as much basketball, but from soccer. She's a Dayton soccer commit. I mean, that counts for a lot this time of year, as we like to say. And I like Monrovia to pull what I believe is an upset there in terms of the John Herald rankings. Northeastern versus Heritage Christian rounds out the Central Indiana teams. Northeastern has Ava Mikesell and Addie Kircher. I've been seeing a lot of updates from them this year. I mean, they are just steamrolling teams, man, just beating the snot out of them. The one thing, though, and as people know, I'm a big stickler for strength of schedule. And Heritage Christian, their record may be 13-12, but they've been through the ringer and played a lot of really good teams this year. They've taken their licks, but they come in on a 6-game win streak that includes notable wins over Triton Central and Eastern Hancock, and was preceded by wins over Brebeuf and Carmel. And I think Carmel might have been full strength at that time. Either way, a really good Carmel team that would go on to take Homestead down to the wire, take Pike down to the wire. So I think that's another one where you look for a tight game. And, it would not surprise me to see Heritage Christian pull the upset there in 2A. Class A, same kind of thing. I can't remember if we mentioned Greenwood Central. I think we did with Rob Hunt. Just Greenwood Central comes in on a bit of a sneaky roll there against Anderson Prep. North Central Farmersburg, that game against Northeast Dubois is one to monitor if you got an itch to watch some small school basketball. North Central Farmersburg 23-3, Northeast Dubois 18-6. Lafayette Central Catholic 22-4 against Monroe Central. I did a little bit of digging as best I could on LCC just because I know that they're a stalwart when it comes to girls basketball around here. The Cherry Girls, and just over the years, it just seems like they're always there and always in contention. I think they knocked off Carroll last year. I think they should be okay against Monroe Central. But again, we're going to do more deep dives, more localized analysis of these Class A 2A games when we get to semi-state. We thank you all so much for watching. We'll be back Sunday morning, probably around 10 a.m. is usually when we do those live shows, but we'll be doing breakdowns and recaps, analysis, Danny and I, of the regional games. And then on IndyStar.com, we'll have some semi-state draw takeaways and things like that to get you ready for the following weekend. We thank you all so much for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.